Welcome to another insightful episode of Parent Entrepreneur Power. In this podcast, Mary Catherine Johnson and Evan Johnson highlight the successes and struggles of parents in business. They share how to be the example of success in entrepreneurship to foster the same in your child, and so much more. Are you ready to power up?
Okay, welcome everyone to another very exciting episode of Parent Entrepreneur Power. I have my lovely, wonderful co-host, Mary Catherine Johnson, or as I know her, Mom, here with me today, as always. And we have a guest that is going to be a lot of fun to have on the podcast today. Rosie Battista, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So we like to start off in the same place with all of our guests, and that's been making sure that all the members of the audience are caught up and on the same page. So for all those people, go ahead and tell us, in your own words, what is it that you do?
So my big broad umbrella of what I do is help people really step into who they are and use their gift for good. So I really help them get past the blocks of like why I can't because I'm too old, or, I need to keep my job. And then to use their creativity, this thing that they are passionate about, to really just kind of dive into being able to give that to the world. And right now I'm teaching people how to make card decks, which is really super fun. So it's using their creativity to take their message and their expertise and put it into this super amazing tool that they can share with their clients.
That's cool.
Yeah.
When I saw what you were doing on your site and when you talked about card decks, it really comes full circle and makes me understand exactly how you take your passion, your mindset, your gift to the world and communicate it. That's what I hear you saying, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And it's really amazing to watch because I get all kinds of different people that come to make a card deck for different reasons. But what I always watch is it's like them birthing a baby, that they're so excited about this thing they have. But then what happens is then from that excitement, they go into like fear. And so I'm like, you cannot leave that beautiful product sitting on your desk. Like, let's get past what it is that's stopping you from going out there and sharing it. And so, we all have those, like that little ego mind that tells us, oh, it kind of sucks anyway. No one's going to really like it. No one's going to buy it. It's going to be, I'm going to be so stupid, So the same thing kind of that happens to people that write a book or anything you make. You're like, first, really, you're inspired. And then all of a sudden, the ego has to come in and say, yeah, maybe you don't want to do that.
It's that amygdala. I hate that little stupid thing in our brain that basically keeps us afraid in order to keep us protected, right? That tiger might come out and eat us any minute. And of course, in our society, since we don't have that, we manifest that in looking silly or being ridiculed or any of those things. And it's normal for all of us. I don't know anyone that I've never met. I haven't met anyone. Of course, I haven't met Elon Musk, so I don't know if he has this or, any huge entrepreneur. I don't know if they have it too, but they're human, so I can't imagine they don't. I've never met anyone who doesn't have that.
Yeah. And I remember, I can't remember the name right now, this very famous actor that would say he would just throw up every time before he was going to go on stage. And I was like, really? So that made me feel good. Okay. So it's like even people that do it all the time and you perceive as being so good at what they're doing. Again, that human thing, like you said.
Yeah. Peter Fonda, I think, was one of them that said
that.
Maybe
I think that might be.
Every time before he was going to perform, he would just vomit in the waistband.
Yeah.
No matter what. Never changed. He always felt that fear. Yeah. And then bringing that into your kids now, because I know Evan and I talk about this all the time with guests where we say, if we can, if we're at that place, and obviously you've overcome that to a certain extent in order to bring your kids to the world, talk about your kids. How many kids do you have? How old are they?
So I have 3 kids. My oldest one is going to be 41. My son, and then my second son is going to be 36 and my daughter's 32. So, but it's interesting because I look at my kids and they're so powerful and strong. Like, so my middle guy's like the real, uh, it's such a perfect specimen of an entrepreneur because he is just, this is what it costs. Like, he doesn't seem to question or say, well, I don't know if I should charge this much. He just is, this is how much it is. He has a personal training studio, I call it it's a concierge workout studio. So it's just one-on-one with the clients. It's very, personal. And he's like, no, this is how much it is. No, and they pay me they pay me for this many sessions, and that's it. Period. End of this. There's not a discussion, or he's just so clear on everything. And like, just watched how his business over the last 10 years has just grown, grown, grown. Now my daughter also works with him full time. They both support their families on this business.
Wow.
And it just keeps growing, and he has a waiting list, and he never questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see any kind of, so
hesitation, fear. Yeah. No hesitation, no fear.
no.
He just does it. Yeah.
I mean, he
And
might
that-
have it, but he's not like letting it out.
expressing it. Yeah, exactly.
Do you do that,
Yep.
Evan?
Yeah, man, I wish I was that, confident in. Well, I'm more so now than I used to be, and I think it takes. I bet you your son was less so at the beginning of his, entrepreneurial
yes.
journey.
Right. Exactly. And I think it just is something that happens, although it seemed to take me a little longer. But then again, I had different parents, right? My son got to watch my entrepreneurship because I was like, I call him, a serial entrepreneur. I'm not like employable really.
I say that same thing. Okay, Rosie, I say that same thing. And,
Yeah.
you wouldn't really want me as an employee.
Right.
It really is not
Right.
something you would want. So
Yeah.
I've been approached a couple of times, and they've like, oh, we'd love to hire you. I'm like, I don't think you'd like me very much. It would not be I'm not a good employee. And
Right.
that's just the way it is.
Yeah. So with this son, right, this is the one thing that always sticks in my head because it was this magic moment of, he graduates from college. He went for like a communications degree. He was, so kind of student, but when he was done, he was like, he didn't have a specific thing he was going to do. So his dad's like, well, come to Wall Street with me. And so he's getting dressed to put on this suit. And I'm like, the one thing I said to him, I said, do you know that, you can do whatever you want, but you're putting on that suit. Do you like wearing that suit? Because every single day you're going to put that suit on, get on public transportation to get into New York City. We live in New Jersey. And he was like, I hate suits. I'm like, well, okay. So you really need to think about that. And at that time I was, I had a gym set up in my basement. So I had a lot of equipment. I'm like, now I'm going to be getting rid of this equipment. If you want it, perfect timing. It's totally yours to do whatever you want. And he went out there, he got a place, and he just went for it. And it was like, when I think back to that, it was like that really decisive moment of like saving a lot of pain to someone that would have been like, oh my God, what am I, after
And then,
15 years, whatever.
Yeah. And he would have had the golden handcuffs at that point, right? Then it would be really hard to give up that money and position and lifestyle and all those things. There are many, many people who are looking at that going, I don't want to give this up, but it's killing me, right? It's killing my spirit, right?
Right.
So, hey, yay, mom, for hopefully helping him understand that he didn't have to go that route.
It's so clear in my mind, that moment of like really magic. And now I get to watch him, because now he has a son, a little 1-year-old. And so when I'm there on Fridays, I go Friday morning at 10, I stay with the baby till noon, and he comes home from work at noon to be with his son for the rest of the day, right? While the mom is out. So again, you don't get to have that kind of freedom when someone else is your boss. So sorry for anyone that's listening that has a boss, but that's the way I feel about it.
No, you're preaching to the choir here. I mean, you're on the right show for that kind of thing. That's, oh my God.
Absolutely.
I can't imagine putting on a suit every day to go to work.
Or even having to be somewhere at a certain time.
Yeah, right? Like
Well,
that.
I mean, even this interview, I'm like, okay, I had it written in my book at 2:00, but for some reason I sat here at 1:00 and went into the Zoom room. I'm like, oh, and then I looked, I'm like, oh, wait, no, it's only 1:00. It's 2:00. But, it was like, okay, no big deal. Went and did something else, come back, like that flexibility and that freedom that everything can be just light, right? And that's not to say that there's not moments of being an entrepreneur. There's a lot of them that you're like, oh my God, like, oh, now, okay, I gotta reset, I gotta reshuffle, like all the time, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
enjoy though, in some kind of, it's more joyful and it's more expansive and,
Yeah. Completely.
I mean, being an entrepreneur has its own problems. It's not like it's the easiest thing, to do, but I'd say the benefits far, far outweigh the problems. Whereas in a more traditional job, if you're an employee, I feel like the problems typically outweigh the benefits.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have to say there have been moments where I have said, maybe I should just get a job, because then I just could know that I could know, right, that, oh, I'm going to get this paycheck. But if this last 2 years haven't proved that that's not true, right? It never was true. It's a false thing that, you're going to always have a secure job until they decide, well, you're not really that useful anymore and you can bye-bye, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah. So it's a false sense of security versus, as entrepreneurs, we're not fooling ourselves that we're secure.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
I mean,
I've been saying that since like before COVID. I will always, like, people would always come back to me, being an entrepreneur. Well, it's not secure, it's not stable. What are you talking? Unless you are the only thing that is stable truly is if you're like a tenured professor.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not a tenured professor, it doesn't matter if you're an employee
right.
or an entrepreneur. Your job is not stable. And I always, someone says that to me. Oh yeah, well, I like being stable. I'll shoot back at them like, oh, you've never known anyone who was unexpectedly fired from a job?
Yeah. And I mean,
The answer is always, well, yeah, you do know someone.
yeah.
Maybe even
And
yourself.
I'll even poke a hole in that tenured professor, because in this climate too, you could say something that they don't like, and then you're kind of like, even if you're not out, you're kind of out.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
there's always some kind of a handcuff or chain around you,
Mm-hmm.
and falsely you're thinking, no, la la la, right?
Yeah, no, it's not. Once you get a job, like I had a friend recently who was fired from a job unexpectedly. Like, I thought that job was supposed to be stable. Wasn't that the whole point? Weird. Weird how
Yeah.
that works.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know. It sounds like you've experienced this, Evan, where, people that aren't entrepreneurs question that, well, don't you, I mean, I had many friends say to me, but don't you want, like, what about a 401k? And what about retirement? And what about, like that
All that
how
stuff.
could you be so like,
Because I mean, there are benefits.
Mm-hmm.
The company pays for your stuff, which is very nice.
Mm-hmm.
right?
But no, I
Yeah.
mean, you can make, if you're an entrepreneur, you can approach it. It takes the difference is that being an entrepreneur takes time to start. When you get a job, you're just right out of the gate. You're making the salary that you're making, and if
Right.
it's not like a minimum wage job, then you're making a decent salary or whatever. But as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, I mean, you have to start from scratch. If you're an employee, the company already exists. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? If you're an entrepreneur, you're starting the company from nothing, and so
Right.
it takes time to build. But once you build it, I mean, you can build it to the point where you're matching the salary, and then you're going beyond it, and then you
Right.
can just pay for your own. Like, it's like, what about a 401k? Pay for your own. What about the
Yeah.
company provided
Exactly.
health insurance? Pay for your own.
Right.
Like, you keep growing the business to the point where that stuff are just like minimal expenses
Yeah.
because you're making so much money from the business.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's part of
Right.
the golden handcuffs. That's part of those handcuffs where they say, well, if you leave, you lose this. Well, you don't lose it. Your 401k is still yours. You're, you
Yeah.
take it with you, but then you contribute to it. And exactly same with insurance and all those things. I agree with you 100%, Evan, but those are things that people use to make themselves feel better, that they are in a stable quote unquote job, and it's more difficult to do anything with entrepreneurship, but that's fine. And like you started this conversation talking, Rosie, it's all mindset. And if that's their mindset, and if we just keep exposing people to the opportunities and they keep exposing themselves and they read and all those things, maybe someday they'll change their mindset. But those of us who have, drunk the Kool-Aid, taken the red pill, whatever you want to say, we've gone beyond that and said, no, my mindset have shifted and I've chosen this. And it's not that I'm telling you you're bad or that your job is bad. I mean, obviously, jobs still keep our economy moving, just like entrepreneurship does, right? And we hire people. So, it's not like that's a bad thing, but it really is a mindset shift. And if that's what you want, and I get it, many people, a job is much more palatable because they do their job and then they leave it and they go home. And that's something that I struggle with constantly. I mean, I can watch a movie on a weekend and go do some things on the weekend, and I'm not like working. But there's always that's part of that mindset of entrepreneurship. There's always opportunities I'm thinking about. There's always things that I'm equating to what I see, in the movie or when I meet people or whatever. I'm never turned completely off because I love what I do. I love it. So I don't want to turn it off. It doesn't mean I work constantly and I'm constantly slaving away,
but you're constantly inspired. You're always inspired.
And I get it. Some people don't want to do, some people just want the job. They go do the thing, they get paid, and then they go have their own time. And that's cool. Go for it. I can't, that's why I wouldn't be a good employee. I can't do it.
Right. Yeah. Do you think that, it's definitely a mindset, but do you think and you kind of said it, that everyone, maybe they're not cut out to be an entrepreneur, but when they started to teach entrepreneurship in college, I'm like, wait, how do you teach that? Because I guess you could teach certain things, but are they teaching the mindset of it? Like, because it's a certain kind of person, not everybody's just willing to
Yeah, I hear you.
I haven't taken an entrepreneurship class in college, but someone went to college not too long ago. I would be very, very surprised if they touched on mindset at all in a college entrepreneurship class.
Right.
That doesn't sound like something that'd be incredibly easy to put on a worksheet or make some stupid test about. Yeah. Or write an essay about. Like, no, that's not the point. That's not what that is. So it's very interesting. But Rosie, I'm curious. So so are all three of your children entrepreneurs or only the one?
My daughter, because she works for my son, so she's
so kind of,
right? My older son, no, he's actually has a union job. He started out as an undertaker, decided, I don't really want to do this anymore after a while, where it kind of changed. So this is an interesting thing too. It kind of changed from being a family owned and operated funeral homes to a big corporation taking over all of these family owned things. And that's when he was like, this is not the same anymore. I don't like it. So that's again, kind of reminding me of, okay, you're working for now a corporation versus a family, which is, an entrepreneurial family. And now he actually is a iron worker. But the part of the job that he does is he's a foreman, and he kind of takes care of his men. So it's an interesting, I think that he really would have had the entrepreneurship mentality, but for some reason, went that way. But the kind of jobs that he's chosen is much more people-y versus outside, an outside thing versus being in an office kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But those other two, my daughter and my son really like the flexibility of setting their appointments, doing whatever they want.
Right. Oh yeah. And you said that you were an entrepreneur for their entire lives, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they always just watched me, from the time they were born. I was doing something. I would even be working through the night, which I think turned my daughter off a little, because she's like, oh, you think about your work all the time. I'm like, well, no, but it's not really, like you said. Yes, but I'm not working. I mean, I love it. I'm happy. Right. So, but so they watched, and then that's how kids learn, right? Just by watching. So they really just watched me always doing my own thing.
Yeah. With your middle son, did you ever do anything purposeful in terms of like teaching him entrepreneurship skills or bringing him on your business in any way, or was he literally just observing you and then took that
I
observation and kind of ran with it?
yeah, I think he just was observing me. And his stepdad at the time was also an entrepreneur, owned I forgot about this. I forgot about this, but owned a couple of tire shops. So started from nothing. And I think that's where my son saw a lot of things too, because, he would also witness that. So yeah, I mean, and we can see too from kids, right? They kind of, like, if you're a doctor, your kids become doctors. If you're an actor, your kids become actors. It seems, right, that the kids
Yeah.
follow along in the footsteps. So yeah, I'd like to think that they got that from watching, you
Yeah, but
know.
you also said that I think it was your oldest you were talking about that was going to think about going onto Wall Street and wearing a suit. So even just
That's the
showing
gym owner.
them,
Yeah, the
yeah,
gym
the
owner.
middle one then, yeah. So even just showing them your encouragement and support and confidence in their abilities to say, yeah, you can do that, but really think about what you're going to be doing. And, I got all this equipment. So if you want it, take it and do something with it. So that gave him a certain
Permission.
amount of confidence that, well, hey, mom thinks I can take this and do something with it.
Yeah,
So, gee, what can I do? And that alone, instead of, again, many parents that we know and that Evan and I have talked to as well, but just really the people that we know would completely keep them focused on that security. And I don't
yeah,
want
that's a
them to
really
have
good
this
point.
insecurity and say, oh, no, that's great. You're doing great. I love your suit. You look so awesome. Can't wait to see how your day is, and really pushing them that direction.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
you're right. And I mean, I never even really thought about that. So I never was one to say, oh, but you need the security, because I never made sense to me. It never makes What really does not make sense to me is that people sell their soul for a job, really sell all of their passions for money.
yeah.
Like, to me, that never really made sense, because you can get money other ways, and wait, it's great to have it, but money isn't the thing that's going to bring you that happiness, because when you're just totally wiped out from killing yourself for a company, then what are you going to, you're sick, and which you see all the time, right? Oh, I'll do that
When I
after,
retire. Yeah.
right? Which
Mhm.
doesn't really work out that well. But I think to your point though, of never saying, well, why don't you get something secure and you can do your the thing that you love on the side, which was what a lot of people say. That doesn't work. You
Yeah.
can't do, you're
No.
not an entrepreneur when you're working your thing on the side. Then you are doing a hobby,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So that's someone might not agree with that. They might say, well, you have to be, but I never was like one for the structure of things. So yeah.
Yeah, and just encouraging. So in that sense, even though you may not have, like Evan was asking earlier, even though you may not have brought him into your business, you definitely gave him opportunities.
Right.
Maybe not through specifically your business, but through your encouragement.
Right.
And really, we as entrepreneurial parents are so much more able to do that. We are in a position to open up doors for our kids, and hopefully help them start. I call it starting a little higher in the mindset staircase, right? We're
Yeah.
walking up these stairs and our mindset shifts as we walk up, and our abilities and our confidence and all those things. And
Yeah.
so, you basically helped him start a little higher on that staircase than you did by giving him that opportunity. Now, he still had to take it. He still had to
Right.
do something with it, but
Right.
you gave him that opportunity instead of squashing that, and
That's right.
really for your own security. And many parents do it for bragging rights to their friends of, so-and-so's
Yeah.
got this big job in Wall Street and buying a big
Yeah.
house up in this, on the Hudson or whatever.
Right.
That's a certain bragging right and a certain security for themselves as well. But, you gave them the opportunity and said, go for it.
Yeah. And I'm always still planting seeds. Like, I help them like set up a blog, which email, carrier to use, and just like little things. Oh, look what this person's doing. You could do this. Is how you can leverage, how you're going to leverage now, so because he can really be leveraging that training place versus showing up one-on-one for
Yes.
his hour of time. So I think that that's something that he's going to eventually grow more into also.
That's the next step, definitely.
Yeah.
More of a, instead of one-to-one, go switch a little bit more one-to-many, or have
Exactly.
other opportunities for people.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
no, of course, I know we could talk to you for hours about all of this stuff because it's so interesting. And I do want to highlight too the fact that, because, I've got my mom here with me right now, and I'm an entrepreneur, and she was an entrepreneur for my entire life. And she taught me the skills that I use and market as a business. But the most important thing, I think, was nothing that she did. She didn't do anything. She just was an entrepreneur. And I just observed
That's
that as a
beautiful.
child and internalized that that's something
Oh, nice.
that a person can do. And so I think
Yeah.
parents might not think about that, like they think that, maybe teaching a child something like that, helping them become an entrepreneur as they grow up has to be something that they like consciously do with some sort of task or teaching opportunity or something like that. But it's honestly
Right.
just them being an entrepreneur and existing as one. And it's kind of like a monkey see, monkey do type situation.
Yeah, that's beautifully put. I love that.
Yeah.
Great.
It's true. That's what I could probably attribute the most to being an entrepreneur. Yeah. But
Yeah.
we could probably talk about this for hours, but I want to respect your time and the time of our listeners.
Yeah.
And so we like to end on a bit of a doozy of a question, but it's powerful. If
Okay.
you were to die tomorrow, what would be the entrepreneurial legacy that you would leave behind for your children to use as they continue to, grow into entrepreneurs themselves?
You could have given me a heads up on the darn question. That's a juicy of a question. Well, I would say that they would say, wow, like, look how mom really just was always in service to other people and always, excited to give her gift and help others to give theirs. And that they would just find that to be like that the more they're in service, the more that will come to them. And they do it in the most like loving and, where they're actually really touching other people's lives.
Right. Because, I think that's pretty much the core of any good business is being of service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not really, you're not helping make the world a better place. So
Right.
again, just like Evan outlined, just by your example of how you approach not just your business, but your life and the way you serve others, that is the legacy you are leaving them and allowing them to continue to do the same.
Yeah.
Awesome, Rosie.
Thank you. This was fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rosie, for being willing to come on the podcast. For people who are interested in you and in what you do, where can they find out more about you?
Yeah. So very simple, rosiebattista.com. On my website, I have my card decoration course right there. My blogs, and you can find everything that I'm doing right there. So rosiebattista.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. It was awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Parent Entrepreneur Power. Hopefully you came away with valuable tools you can use in your business, life, and relationship with your kids. If you want to hear more about our mission, or if you want more insights into cultivating your parent entrepreneur power, join our movement to make entrepreneurship more accessible to parents and their kids at parentrepreneur.power.com.